we'll be discussing simple pricing from the viewpoint or from the standpoint of economics. The following are the learning objectives. My students should be able to understand simple pricing and also be able to comprehend how consumers respond to pricing and also to acquire pricing skills. The presentation has the following contents, such as pricing decisions, simple pricing and complex pricing, consumer surplus and demand curves, pricing trade-off, marginal analysis of pricing, estimating price elasticities, factors that make demand more elastic, and calculating the elasticity of demand. This is only part 1. Next meeting, I will give you part 2, the continuation. Okay, moving on. What are pricing decisions? Pricing decisions are the choices businesses make when setting prices for their products or services. So how to price their products? Simply how to price the product. Price higher or price lower. And the extent of how much to price their product. How much lower or how much higher. Pricing is considered part of a company's marketing strategy because it influences its relationship with customers. When prices are fair and competitive, customers come back, increasing the profitability of the business. So first of all, price or pricing either attracts or drives away your customers, the potential customer. So it's one way. The way you price your product is one way to attract the market. Okay. Another one is that the way you price your product is one way to maintain or cultivate a relationship with customers. Like in price discrimination, giving special prices to what we call valued customers. Okay. Moreover, the way we maintain the price of our product is one way to develop loyal customers. One way to develop trust with our customers. And therefore, it could lead to increasing the profitability of the business. In terms of pricing decisions, the firm must be able to understand its customers and how price influences their purchasing decisions. Meaning to say that the business firm must adopt mindful pricing, considering how customers respond to prices, considering the characteristics of the users of its products. So it's about knowing your customers, understanding your customers before you design the price for your product. Before you decide how to price your product. Also, the firm must know what competitors are offering and what they charge for their products and services. Meaning to say that it's not only monitoring, it's not only about monitoring our consumers and how they react to our products, especially in terms of the prices, but also keep abreast. We have to keep abreast of our competitors, specifically on how they price their product, the composition of their product lines, and the behavior of their prices. So Meaning to say that we also have to monitor, no? Monitoring our customers and also monitoring our competitors. And we could learn a lot, no, from our competitors. The firm must also be able to adjust quickly to changes in markets, vendors, and customers. That's why there are companies who are agile. No? They are very agile. They are very quick to respond. And that is one way to maintain competitiveness in the industry. No? Being very adaptive, no? Quickly adapting to changes in the market and in the industry. It's not only about prices, but it's also about supplies, no? The supplies for the raw materials of our products, um, other factors, no, that influence the markets, like economic factors of inflation, population change, political changes. It's these are factors, no, that affect the market, the industry, and your buyers and your distributors as well. To be able to help customers understand why its products or services are priced as they are. Okay. Well, at this point, I don't remember, no, any firm, no, any established firm that has explained to its customers, no, why they price their product or their services that much or that level. What I know is that with small vendors, no, with small traders, they are usually the ones who explain, no, why they are charging their product or their services a little bit higher. No, they have they take the opportunity, you know, to explain. So that's the only experience that I had. No? I do not know on your side, no, if your suppliers or your ang tawag mo dyan, mga suki, no, let's say, when you go for a spa, no, do they explain, no, why, or do they even notify you that they have implemented change in their prices? No? So this is one thing that business firms, no, rarely do, if they even do it. The firm must also be able to negotiate with wholesalers, retailers, and other suppliers and resellers. Well, this is one way, no, to gain a competitive advantage in the industry. Uh, Bargaining or haggling, no, with suppliers and um, adapting or drafting a contract, no, with their distributors, no, like wholesalers and retailers. So trying to come up, no, with better terms, no, better terms with suppliers, no, um, and also giving incentives, no, to their distributors. So, communication and negotiation is one of the keys in maintaining what we call competitiveness, profitability, and visibility in the market. And also the firm must track, track how pricing affects sales. So within the company, the firm must monitor, monitor the prices, along with the sales volume, for the product that they are selling. So maintaining this data, is important because the figures, tell us a lot, about how consumers are accepting your product, how they react to the price change, how they react to the volume, that you offer in the market. So this is also important, monitoring what we call sales data. There are two types of pricing decisions: simple pricing and complex pricing. Simple pricing involves charging what competitors charge for similar goods and services. This strategy is often used by retailers and wholesalers selling commodities. Um, so meaning to say that, especially now for startup companies, they adapt a price that is similar to their competitors selling the same product. Well, that simplifies things, no? And that approximates the ability to earn, no, some profit margin from your product. Parang you're playing safe, no, when you try to match the competitor's price, no, with similar products. So this is often used by retailers and wholesalers selling commodities. Um, Take note that in a purely competitive market, the commodities are priced almost always similarly. Um, like for a particular variance of rice, no? Yan, usually mga prime commodities, no, pare-pareho yung pricing. Um, Charging a little more or a little less. Pero so they don't depart much, from the prices established in the market. Companies that make simple pricing decisions often try to increase sales by making small competitive adjustments, such as purchase discounts, volume discounts, and purchase allowances. So from the standard price, that companies establish, um, in order to gain more sales, or to give their loyal customers, the incentive to buy more, they extend discounts, depending on the volume. So that's what do we call it? It's a pricing strategy. No? So some adjustments, making the price a little lower or a little higher, depending on the customer, depending on the situation, depending also on the volume. Based on our author, simple pricing refers to a single firm selling a single product at a single price. Um, Meaning to say, or implying, that what is common in the business world is that we find business firms who are offering um, a composite, or a set of products and services with different prices. They offer various products, with different prices. Seldom do we find a firm that focuses on a single product and therefore having a single price. But that is the focus, to simplify, the idea here of pricing. On the other hand, complex pricing is based on the originality of a product or service and what customers are willing to pay for it. So it depends, so the pricing will vary depending on the maybe condition of the product, and depending also on the willingness, of the customer to, or the capacity of the customer to pay for the product. This type of pricing is determined through negotiation with the customer and is common for custom furniture, artworks, and consulting services. So I could imagine, that this type of pricing would is very familiar, or a perfect example here is when you order products, no, um, um, that are to be customized. So it's really a different price, no. When we personally all order products, especially for our personal use, and that they are customized according to our specifications. So it naturally follows that pricing will differ, no, from one customer to another, depending on the quality of the product or on the specifications of the product or service. Okay, going back now to, or focusing now on simple pricing, um, we will see that there are three factors that will influence pricing, no, simple pricing. The first that we will encounter here is the law of demand, no, more on the behavior of the consumer. Okay, so with the behavior of the consumer in mind, it gives us a clue, no, or information to how we are going to price our product. So this is one, no, one factor, no, how to price our product depending on consumer behavior. Part of consumer behavior is that one explaining how consumers value a product. Okay, and when you talk about valuing a particular product, it is related to consumer surplus. According to the law of demand, consumers demand more or purchase more as price falls, assuming other factors are held constant. So, meaning to say not that if we focus only on the price, there is an inverse relationship between quantity demanded and price for the same product, such that the higher the price, the lesser, no, would consumers buy, and the lower, no, the lower the price, the more consumers are willing to buy a product. So that's basically the explains, no, uh, the consumer behavior, no, in terms of price. Consumers make consumption decisions using marginal analysis such that they consume more if the marginal value of the product is greater than the price. Which, in other words, no, a consumer would, if a consumer values a product more than its price, then more likely he will purchase the product and more of it. So the price would tend to become a secondary consideration. So first, in order to entice the buyer to buy, he must recognize, no, the value of that particular product. But the marginal value of consuming each subsequent unit diminishes the more you consume. Um, Based on the law of diminishing marginal utility, um, if a consumer gets more and more of a particular good, his utility or the additional satisfaction that he gets out of it tends to diminish. That's the reason why um, the marginal value that a consumer would apply, you know, to a particular product tends to get lower and lower. The marginal value decreases if you give him more, or the more he gets, no, the more units, no, the product gets. The consumer surplus is equal to the value of the product to the consumer minus the price paid. Meaning to say that usually the consumer attaches a higher value to a product meaning to say that he's willing not to pay a price higher than it is actually offered, at that particular price. Therefore, he will get a surplus out of that. So if the value of the consumer is higher, the value that the consumer attaches to the product is higher than the price, for sure there is going to be a consumer surplus. But then, if it could be the case, that the value that the consumer places on the product is just equal to the price for which it is being offered, then we would say that there is no consumer surplus at all. Okay. We're given the definition that demand curves are functions that relate the price of a product to the quantity demanded by consumers. This simply means that a demand curve shows the functional relationship between price and quantity demanded of the consumers. Again, going back to the shape of the demand curve, which is downsloping, showing the inverse relationship between the two, price and quantity demanded. Okay, here's a demand schedule for pizza, wherein there are various prices and various units purchased. For example, at $5, price of the pizza, one slice is purchased. And at $4, 2 slices are purchased. But the point here is that as price decreases, the quantity demanded increases. And showing also the values attached, the values that correspond to each of the slices in terms of price. Okay, note that if pizza slice price is $3, the consumer will purchase 3 slices. Okay. Continuing now with our demand schedule here. For the first slice, the total and marginal revenue value are the same at $5. Okay, here, the total value is computed by taking a cumulative of the marginal value, like 5 plus 4 equals $9. 9, okay, 5 plus 4 plus 3 equals 12. And so on. 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 equals 14. So we'll see that the total value is the accumulation of the marginal value at some point. Okay, then the individual demand is now translated into aggregate demand. In our demand schedule, again, we find prices, varying prices for different slices purchased, showing how consumers respond to prices. Prices going down, purchases going up. And also we have the total price paid. Total price paid. 5 times 1, 4 times 2, 3 times 3. So this is the total price paid. The total value again is also indicated here. And then the surplus. The surplus is computed by subtracting total price paid from the total value. The total value again here is the accumulation of the earlier kanina sinabi ko na how to compute for the total value. Okay. Now The aggregate demand is the same as the market demand, and it is the total number of units that will be purchased by a group of consumers, no, like a population, at a given price. The buying behavior of a group of consumers also. It is a total of all the individual demand curves, just like putting together all of the quantities demanded of a, a certain population or a certain segment, no, of the population. So it's just putting together um, the demand, no, of individuals, many individuals. That's aggregate demand. Okay. So now here, the aggregate demand looks similar, no, to the individual demand that we saw earlier. Um, Demand curves describe buyer behavior and tell you how much they will buy at a given price. So it's clear, no, that buying behavior can be depicted, no, in brief, no, by a downsloping demand curve. So that's how people, no, react to prices. They buy low at higher prices, and they buy more at lower prices. Okay. If something other than price causes an increase in demand, we say that demand shifts to the right or demand increases, such that consumers purchase more at the same prices. So there is another possibility, no, that uh, with even with constant price, no, it's possible that people may buy more, shifting the curve to the right, or they may buy less, shifting the demand curve to the left, telling us that there are other factors that will affect, that affect consumers. It's not only price, there are other factors. Meaning with no change in price, other factors will increase the quantities demanded, or vice versa, decrease the quantities demanded. Other factors. Okay. Um, Pricing is an extent decision. Recalling that profit is equal to revenue minus cost, okay? And that demand curves turn pricing decisions into quantity decisions. So when we ask what price should I charge, we're also talking about the quantities, no? So the same question is equivalent to how much should I sell? Meaning to say that in pricing products, it touches also, it impinges on the question of how many to sell. So when we decide how much to sell, we also decide how many, no? How many to sell. That's why it's called a pricing trade-off, no? Because it's a trade-off, and the trade-off consists of with lower price, firms will have to sell more but earn less on each unit sold. The other, so meaning to say that at lower price, you cannot sell lower, no? Uh, on the other hand, if at higher prices, the firm will have to sell less but earn more on each unit sold. So increase in price, decrease in quantity here. And at lower price, increase in quantity. So is it possible to sell lower and then at low volume? On the other hand, is it possible to sell higher and then at the same time at high volume? Is that possible? Well, that will be in defiant, or it will get in conflict, no? With, it's not consistent with the law of demand, no? The pricing trade-off here is consistent with the law of demand. Um, and this is surely what's going to happen. No? Um, we cannot go against, no, the law of demand. We cannot expect people to buy more at higher prices. Neither could we expect them to buy less at lower prices. So the pricing trade-off is fundamental, and it is consistent with consumer behavior, specifically with um, the law of demand. The trade-off is created by a downward sloping demand. So this is in a nutshell, no, my explanation earlier, no, about the trade-off being consistent with the law of demand is this one, no, statement. The trade-off is created by a downward sloping demand curve. So that's one, no? One basis of pricing is consumer behavior, no? Based on the law of demand. Another basis of pricing is marginal analysis. Okay, let's see what this is about. Marginal analysis finds the profit increasing solution to the pricing trade-off. It tells you which direction to go, to raise or lower price, but not how far to go. Okay, so the preceding presentation or earlier, the slides, no, is telling us, no, about pricing high and pricing low. Pricing high, less quantity. Pricing low with more quantity. Okay, so that was the point, no. But then it did not did not tell us, no, how many more to buy or how many more. I mean, how much, no, how much higher to go in terms of price or how much lower. So that's not specifically expressed, no, or that was not presented. Uh, the the um, the law of demand, no, guided by the law of demand, it does not tell us, no, how much to raise or how much to lower our price. But marginal analysis does. Let's see how. First of all, the definition is that marginal revenue is a change in total revenue from selling another unit. So to sell another unit, there is a 1 unit additional revenue. There's an additional revenue for an additional unit sold. If the marginal revenue is greater than zero, meaning positive, then total revenue will increase if you sell one more. Um, so if it's positive, it means to say that you can sell more and still gain some more in profit. And if the marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, like MR greater than MC, then total profit will increase if you sell one more. Um, this inequality, no, wherein MR is greater than MC, is telling us that um, the firm still has the capacity to increase, its output, or it has the capacity to sell more. Because when MR is greater than MC, it means that resources are not fully employed, that there is still a remaining capacity to sell more, for the firm to sell more. Okay. Um, then increasing the quantities, no, that the firm sells should be up to that point where MR is already equal to MC, at least approximate, no, to this equality. And in that way, the profit is maximized. This was already presented, no, in the preceding lesson. So using marginal analysis, let us find the optimal price. Okay, so without that, no, without the, so we'll see that later. Okay, first we look at the table, no, the schedule of price, quantity, MR, MC, revenue, and profit. See that the price here is decreasing and there's a corresponding quantity for each of the prices. $7, $6, and so on until the lowest price of $1. At that level, quantities sold is 7 units. The revenue here is computed by the formula price times quantity. So total revenue is equal to number of units sold at that particular price, like $5 times 3 equals $15. Okay. So we have a column of revenue. The column of MR was computed, no, by getting the difference between two consecutive revenues. The additional revenue, for example, here, how did we get $5? Simply 12 minus 7. Then for the succeeding, 15 minus 12, and so on. That's how it was computed. Now, the MC value here, which is constant at $1.50, it's given. No? It is simply given by the author. And so for the profit, okay, for the profit, it is also given. But the point here is that MR and MC are placed side by side, no, for us to make a to compare how large the MR is against MC or and vice versa, which is higher, MR or MC. When MR is higher than MC, it means that the firm is gaining profit. So that's why we have here positive values. And we'll see that MR is decreasing, but still decreasing, from 7 up to $1. Um, and MC is constant at 150. At some point, MR is greater, no? Okay, up to some point, MR is greater than MC. At what quantity is that? At 3 units and at the price of $5, no? We see that MR maintains its being greater than MC. And we also see that profit is highest, no, at this level, no, of 3 units and $5. So, what can we conclude, no, out of this? We can conclude that the firm earns the highest profit at this point, no, wherein quantity sold is 3 units at $5. And at that point, MR is greater than MC. So therefore, we could conclude that the optimal price is $5, no? Because it is the price that gives the firm the highest profit. But it is also noticeable here, though, that the equality between MR and MC was not reached, no? So there are cases when it's not possible to reach the equality between MR and MC. However, the firm could approximate or could at least move closest, no? Move to that production or selling volume that is very near, no, to the equality between MR and MC. But at least MR should be positive than MC, at least. The MR should not be lesser than the MC. Again, the optimal price is $5 because, and at the quantity of or volume of 3 units, because That is the price that gives the firm the highest profit. Okay, so that's the second basis, no, of pricing. The first was the trade-off, no, between price, no, price and quantity demanded based on the law of demand. And the second one is through marginal analysis. No? That's how we arrive at pricing, no, at the pricing decision. Okay. And then the third basis, no, for pricing decision is uh, finding the elasticity of demand. No? In which case, it's still about consumer behavior, but specifically on elasticity. By elasticity, it means responsiveness. No? How responsive or how reactive consumers are to a certain price level for a given product. Okay, there are 5 factors that affect demand elasticity and optimal pricing. When we say demand elasticity, again, no, it's about the responsiveness of consumers to a given price. The first factor, products with close substitutes have elastic demand. Each of these will be discussed in detail later. The second is that the demand for an individual brand is more elastic than industry aggregate demand. The third is that products with many complements have less elastic demand. The fourth is that in the long run, demand curves become more elastic. And finally, as price increases, demand becomes more elastic. Okay, now the details. For the first factor affecting elasticity, products with close substitutes have elastic demand. What does this mean? There are products with close substitutes, no? Like in the shampoo category, there are many labels. No? They are close substitutes. And so in the conditioner, no? And also in the liquor, ngayon, ang dami-dami na, diba? There are many competitors, no? In the liquor industry. So many brand names. So almost products now, no, they have many substitutes. Like in the milk, no, milk industry, processed meat, halos lahat, no. Okay. Consumers respond to a price increase by switching to their next best alternative. Okay, now, in relation to pricing, and when we talk about close substitutes, if there are if you are a consumer of a specific shampoo, no, shampoo brand, halimbawa, you patronize Dove shampoo. Okay? Now, should there be any change in Dove shampoo, di ba, nag-increase yan, no? Just a slight change, no? Just a slight change in the price of Dove, no, will cause you or any consumer to switch to another competitor, to another label, the same product category. Okay, kaya nga madaling, it's easy to switch, no, to other brands. Like in Pancit Canton, di ba? There are already many brand names. No? So pag tumaas yung presyo ng isa, ilipat ka lang sa ibang labels, di ba? It's very, meaning to say that the demand is very elastic. No? People are very responsive. They are very sensitive to a slight price change, no? Because there are many competitors, many substitutes. Parang gusto mong sabihin na, ba't ako magtsatsaga dito na namamahal, di ba? Pareho lang naman quality. No? O di lipat ka, di ba? You buy another brand name. Okay, for factor 2, The demand for an individual brand is more elastic than industry aggregate demand, meaning to say that um, we are comparing here the elasticity of aggregate demand versus individual indi versus individual demand for a single brand, such that individual brand is more elastic. The rough rule of thumb is that the brand price elasticity is approximately equal to industry price elasticity divided by brand share. Anong ibig sabihin ni Floreb dito? Ito yan. He came up with this example of Nike running shoes, which is an individual brand. Okay. Now, the aggregate demand here is the demand for all running shoes. He now compares the elasticity of demand for all running shoes, which is zero point 0.4, negative, of course. And the aggregate demand, that's the aggregate demand. But the individual demand, the demand for Nike running shoes is computed. How? Given the market share of Nike shoes, it's simply the demand for all running shoes divided by the market share, which is negative 2. Negative 2 is a number that tells us that the demand for Nike is highly elastic, such that an increase or decrease in the price of Nike shoes will be easily felt by its consumers. Halimbawa, bumaba ng konti yung presyo, there will be a a higher, comparatively speaking, a higher demand for Nike. Pag may slight change in Nike, bumaba siya, biglang dadami yung bibili. But for a slight increase, the opposite, a slight increase in the price of Nike shoes, there will be a great decrease in the demand for Nike shoes. Excuse me. Okay. For factor number 3, products with many complements have less elastic demand. So what are some products with many complements? Excuse me. Ano ba yung complements? Yung mga sauce, halimbawa, yung salad, ano yung salad sauce na yan? Yung mayonnaise, halimbawa, mayonnaise, no? You take mayonnaise you take it with many other products. Like, pwede siyang sauce, pwede siyang additive sa salad, no? Pwede siyang sinasama din sa yan, yung tinatagtag, ano ba yan? Na tenga ng baboy, ang tawag niyo doon, class. Yung sisig, sisig lalagay din sa sisig yan. So mayonnaise is an additive, no? It is a sauce, no? It has many uses. So meaning to say it's taken together, with other foods, no? So it can be so when you go shopping, the demand, with respect to price, it's less it has less elastic, meaning to say that people probably would really ignore, or will not be will be less sensitive, to any price change in that mayonnaise. So not so responsive, such that a slight increase in the price of mayonnaise will not affect much, the quantities bought. If there's a change, konti lang. If there's a slight decrease, however, in the price of the same product, we will not see any greater change in the quantities demanded. So parang people would tend to ignore, or pay very little attention to the change in the price of that mayonnaise, because it has many complements. Parang katulad din, di ba, when you go on and when you go bonding no, with your friends, ano yung binibili nyo? Halimbawa, MP lights, no? Kasi bonding yan. O kaya ano pa yung usually, no, anything that kaya sunmig light. Ano iba? What are these food no, that you take along to complement that drink? Diba? That drink. Siyempre, meron kang sisig, meron kang chicharon, mga ano, what do you call this? Mga pulutan, no? Yung fries, di ba? Or chicken skin, no? Di ba? You usually, pati yung mga chips, di ba? So this, you call these things, no, complements, no? Goods that are taken together. So that any change in the price of, in any of this bundle, no? You will tend to ignore. Halimbawa, na mahal ng konti yung, ay, tumaas yung presyo ng sisig. O sige, bilhin mo pa rin yan. No? Parang you tend to ignore kasi you take them no as complements. Now, here's another example of the author. Okay. iPhones, no? iPhones, it has complementary apps, no? Embedded on iPhone are complementary apps, which make you less, less likely to substitute to another product. At any rate, it has many product features, no? Aside from the complementary apps that are bundled, no, with that iPhone. Okay, so you are less sensitive to the price. So you wouldn't mind. No? So bibilin mo pa rin siya. Kaya kahit medyo tumaas ang presyo yung iPhone because of those complementary apps. Okay, so the author presented, it's a little different from my example, but it's the same idea. No? We have the same idea, no, about less elastic demand for products with many complements. For factor 4, in the long run, demand curves become more elastic. In the long run, meaning if you allow some time, no, to pass, you give people a reaction time. And you give retailers or newcomers to enter the market. So, meaning to say that changes, no, are possible in the long run. So that it takes some time, no, it gives people some time to react. And when that time comes, they become very reactive, no? The responsiveness is higher in the long run. This can also be explained by the speed at which price information is spread or the ability of consumers to find more substitutes in the long run. So there are many examples now on this. There are many situations. You can paint a lot of scenarios. The scenario may be about consumers reacting. It may be about suppliers reacting. So if we go back to the iPhone, no? iPhone, halimbawa, iPhone, initially, yung iPhone 12, may be selling at a high price, no, in one of the outlets in SM, okay? And it's because it's very new, so you'll find very few distributors of that. And people have less knowledge about price differences. So that in the first month that it's introduced, people cannot switch, no? They still buy it, no? Because they do not have any information. Say, for example, it's being sold at 2,000 pesos less, no? In another outlet. Let's say in Lucky Chinatown, mas mura yan, no? Doon sa, ano yan? Yung pangalan, Beyond the Box yata yun. Okay? Tapos may freebies pa, parang ganon. So, if you give it some time, no, let's say a few more months, you see that people will become sensitive, no, to the price to an increase, no, in the price of iPhone, because they could look, no, especially if they have an idea, no, where to find lower price, no, or discounted. The same phone at discounted prices. How much more if there are other brand names, no, brand names similar to iPhone that are bundled, no, with the same applications, etc. So it gives people more time to accumulate information about prices and availability, no, of the same good. So that's why in the long run, demand curves become more elastic. And I would say that this is applicable to almost all products. Here's another example of the author, about ATM fees. Uh, so in the long run, consumers, become more elastic. They become more responsive to the increase in the user fees. So they could avoid this user fees later on, but initially they will try to shoulder, the user fees. Later on, they could um, avoid, this increase, in the ATM fees. And for factor 5, as price increases, demand becomes more elastic. So the higher the price, the more responsive are people, meaning to say that uh, the higher the price increase. Halimbawa, yung tawag dito, yung LPG, di ba? Parang napakataas nung ano niya. Um, the increase in price is so great, no? And for that matter, all fuel prices, have been increasing. And we see people, switching from the use of LPG to using only the charcoal. No? They switch to charcoal, the use of charcoal. So they give up altogether the use of LPG because, meaning to say that they are very responsive. The price, on the price, of fuel. So people, the demand, the the demand for the price elasticity of fuel is very elastic. So people, meaning to say that people are very responsive, very reactive, to any price increase, in the fuel. Here is another example. There's a price increase in sugar, um, and this led to bottlers shifting to corn syrup, the use of corn syrup. Very elastic. Okay. Apart from prices, um, price elasticity of demand, as you have seen, means that with price changes, people react. No, the reaction may be very responsive or less responsive, but in the most cases I have given, people are very responsive, such that the change in their quantities demanded is greater than the change in the price. Apart from prices, there are other factors that cause people to be sensitive about or to react about. And income is one. No? Income elasticity measures the change in demand arising from a change in income. Meaning to say that the demand for a particular product will increase or it will decrease depending on the change in income. But what we are after is the net change, which is greater, the change in income or the change in quantities demanded. Certain goods are inferior, and there are those that are normal goods. And the demand for inferior goods will change depending on the change in income, such that it is negative, meaning the elasticity, the income elasticity for inferior goods is negative, which means that as income increases, demand declines. So there is an inverse no relationship between income and the demand for inferior goods. On the other hand, the income elasticity for normal goods is positive, which means that as income increases, the demand for normal goods increases as well. Okay. Um, Whether it's elastic or inelastic, it depends on which is larger. If the increase in income is larger, but the change in quantity demanded is smaller, then we will say that it is inelastic. And on the other hand, if there's a small change in income, but comparatively, there's a greater change in quantity demanded for a product, then we would say that yeah, it's highly elastic or income elastic. No? Um, Income elastic in the demand for that a particular good. Okay, then here's another elasticity, which is cross price elasticity of good one with respect to the price of good two. When we talk about cross price elasticity, there are two goods involved. No? They could be complementary goods or they could be substitute goods. When we talk about two goods in terms of cross elasticity, it means that if there is a change in the price of good A, there will be a change. It reflects a change on the quantity demanded of another good, be it a complement good or a substitute good. An example here no, are two substitute goods, such that an increase in the price of Coke will have an effect on the quantities demanded of its substitute, which is, let's say, Pepsi. Okay, substitute. By a positive cross-price elasticity, it means that as the price of a substitute increases, no, like that of Coke, the demand for Pepsi increases as well. Okay? And there's also complement, no? The cross-price elasticity of complement goods, no, means that as the price of a complement increase, like coffee, no, the price of coffee increases, the demand for a complement good like sugar decreases. Okay, and um, the the sign no of the elasticity matters no. When it's positive, it means that the goods involved are substitute goods. And when it's negative, the cross elasticity is negative, it means that the goods involved are complement goods. Um, okay. I have been talking, no, I've been discussing about elasticity. Elasticity means responsiveness. Broadly defined, it refers to responsiveness in behavior to changes in price or some other economic variable. Okay, so that's what I have been telling you, no? Whenever I talk about elasticity, it's really about how consumers respond in terms of quantities that they buy. Okay, so consumers react to changes, no, in price, income, and prices of related goods. Okay. So there are three types of elasticities so far, no. Price elasticity of demand, income elasticity of demand, and cross elasticity of demand. It depends on to what no consumers are responding. Like they respond to change in price, then it's called price elasticity of demand. If they respond to in terms of income reflected in how many goods that they buy, it's called income elasticity of demand. When we look at how they respond, no, to in terms of quantity demanded of one good, because of the price change in another good, then we're talking about cross elasticity of demand. These are the formula um, that compares no change in quantity demanded against another variable like price, no, the change in price. So clearly we could see that the change in quantities demanded is due to a change in price. Therefore, we could also say that the quantities demanded may also change with respect to change in income. No? So we'll just change this no, to illustrate income elasticity of demand. And finally, we could illustrate cross price elasticity of demand no, yeah, by simply changing this uh, or assuming that this is the price of the other good. This is the quantities demanded of one good, and this prices refer to the price of another good, which may be a substitute good or a complement good. Okay, so next meeting, no, I hope we could apply this formula. You will have some exercise to practice how to compute for the elasticity, different elasticities. Here's an example of how the elasticity of demand, price elasticity of demand is computed. No, there are two ways, but usually we use the midpoint formula. This is the midpoint formula. Okay, so I'll continue na lang. No, next meeting, no, we will begin or we will resume, no, from this point, no, estimating demand elasticity, and then how to price our product depending on the effect no, to total revenue. Pricing the product with respect to the revenue, how to generate more revenues in terms of pricing, considering elasticity. So these are connected. No? Pricing, revenue, and elasticity. Elasticity, pricing, and revenue. These are all connected. That will be discussed no? Next meeting. Are there any questions? So I need to end this no? Because we will be cut short no?